The anime begins with a boy pedaling through the futuristic city of Kitakageyami. He notices something strange happening on top of a building. A few minutes earlier, inside the building, security guards found a young woman stealing an important item. Using the robotic lens attached to her body, she skillfully climbs the structure with ease and makes it back to the balcony, where she's met by armed guards. A glowing tattoo on her leg enhances her metallic limbs, and one of the guards yells that she's a Mecha Ude user. Her machine speed and strength are incredible, but the guards have anti-Mecha Ude weapons and manage to trap her. At that moment, a man with his own mechanical limbs arrives to retrieve the stolen item. The girl's machine, which seems to have a mind of its own, is shocked to see another of its kind working against it. The man claims Mecha Udes are just tools for humans. He uses his bladed chains to pull the item back, but the girl commands Senai's and Dex to attack. Her metallic limbs break free, and a fierce battle begins. The guards fire again, but she dodges the bullets and continues fighting. After a fierce exchange, she grabs the item, but a crack in the glass causes it to explode, sending out a beam of light that the protagonist sees from afar. After the explosion, a cube emerges from the container. The next day, Hikaru Umitsuga wakes up to a voice in his head, asking for help. As his alarm clock rings, he gets ready for the day. Later, he leaves his house and rides the subway, where ads from Kagami Corporation are everywhere. While on the subway, Hikaru reads about Naohito Kagami's life work and notices a comment saying regular people can't even try to understand it. Just then, a man falls asleep on Hikaru's shoulder, interrupting his reading. He notices a pregnant woman standing nearby and two older ladies gossiping. Hikaru is stuck, unable to move because of the sleeping passenger. As Hikaru zones out, he sees an ad for Kitakami Prep School, which makes him nervous. Meanwhile, the man wakes up and offers his seat to the pregnant woman. At that moment, Hikaru realizes he forgot something important and needs to get off the subway. Three classmates approach him to chat on the way to school. They discuss sports and Yakumo Kagami, the biggest celebrity in baseball, and Tagawa declares that it's now the era of the monster, Kasuke Tagawa. The prep school ad says, "Take a step forward. Seize your future." But Tagawa thinks regular people are struggling because they can't take that step. He asks Hikaru's opinion, but Hikaru wasn't paying attention. Meanwhile, the girl with the Mecha Ude learns from her arm that the cube must be nearby. Hikaru tells his friends about what happened the day before. He saw the Kagami building glowing, and when he went for a better view, it exploded, and he recorded it. However, none of it appeared on camera. Then a girl named Shirayama joins the conversation, and Tagawa jokes that Hikaru is having strange hallucinations about voices and explosions. One friend asks what the voice sounded like, and embarrassed, Hikaru admits it was someone asking for help. He suddenly feels that the voice is coming from a certain direction and runs off. Hikaru arrives at a restricted area, and after the police officer leaves, he hears the voice more clearly and crosses the barrier. He heads to a dark room and finds the cube. When the cube finally speaks and asks for help, Hikaru realizes he wasn't imagining it. Suddenly, the cube attaches itself to Hikaru's hoodie, emitting a bright light that catches the attention of the girl with mechanical limbs. A robotic arm comes out of the cube and slowly realizes it's safe. Hikaru, confused by what's happening, spins around and finally notices something stuck to his back. Shocked and trembling with fear, Hikaru listens as the robotic arm thanks him for saving it and tries to introduce itself but forgets its own name. Panicking, Hikaru tries to pull the arm off, but it starts crying. Just then, a delivery drone from the Kagami group announces it has found its target. The drone identifies Hikaru as a possible ARMS member and chases him with spinning blades. Hikaru runs, and the robotic arm grabs onto his pants to stay close, causing his pants to fall and making him trip. In desperation, Hikaru offers the robotic arm to the drone. thinking it's the target. But when attacked, the arm fights back and shuts down the drone. More drones appear, and the robotic arm warns Hikaru they need to work together to escape. Meanwhile, in a large office building, an important man learns that the trigger arm has been found and has connected with a civilian. After hearing this, Hikaru runs away. Miyahito Kagami, the company's president, leaves the issue to his team. They order a 2-mile perimeter to capture the arm no matter what. Hikaru and the robotic arm, now named Hyde, hide from the drones and manage to stay safe. Relieved, Hikaru asks what the arm is, but it can't answer as it doesn't remember its own name. However, it does know one thing: Hikaru is kind. Hikaru says he hasn't done anything special, but the arm insists it was saved, explaining that without Arbitrium, it wouldn't be able to move. Hikaru asks what Arbitrium is, but the arm ignores the question and instead asks for his name. Hikaru doesn't answer, wishing the arm good luck and walking away. As the trigger arm starts losing power, Hikaru becomes worried and runs back to check. The arm regains full power. Frustrated, Hikaru walks away again, but the same thing happens. Realizing he has no choice, Hikaru stays close. Drones locate them again, and the arm pulls Hikaru along, dragging him on the ground to escape. A Kagami employee watches, believing the drones will take care of it and focusing on a girl nearby. Meanwhile, Akimura. Sama, a woman with mechanical arms, follows the path of the mysterious light beam. She crosses a narrow road to shorten her journey. Hikaru, now running on his own, is exhausted. Aki catches up and brings her mechanical arms, Sinai's and Dex, to destroy the enemy drones easily. She warns Hyde not to move or it will die. One of her arms says she must promise to protect them, but the other says it no longer matters. The Kagami employee reappears, wanting revenge on Aki for what happened the night before. She dismisses him, focusing on Hikaru and Hyde. The duo tries to escape through a narrow path, but the enemy stops her. In the chaos, Hikaru crosses the path and dodges more drones. Aki gets frustrated by her rival's interference, while Hikaru starts to lose control in the middle of this chaos. Though he escapes, Hikaru is exhausted. Seeing this, Hyde offers to stay behind, saying Kagami is after it, not him, and doesn't want the kind boy to get hurt. Just then, Aki returns after defeating the Kagami employee, ready to complete her mission. Hyde promises to obey her if she lets Hikaru go, but Hikaru refuses to leave the arm. Aki prepares to use force, getting her Mecha Ude ready for battle. Hyde asks for Hikaru's trust, saying they must work together to survive. Hikaru, remembering Kagami's prep school ads making life look easy, gets angry and charges at Aki. At that moment, Hyde activates its power, growing in size and strength, and slams Aki into the ground. This gives Hikaru and Hyde the chance to escape. Kagami employees are closing in, searching for them, but Hikaru and the arm take unusual paths to avoid capture. While escaping, Hikaru mentions hearing Hyde's name from the woman and introduces himself to the Mecha Ude. Meanwhile, a young boy collapses from exhaustion after being saved. Using an inhaler, he angrily declares that the trigger arm belongs to him. At the same time, the leader of a group opposing Kagami, which Aki is part of, expresses disappointment in her failure. She insists that they must recover Hyde before it falls into enemy hands. Aki is sent back on the same mission. Soon after, the investigators quickly identified the boy who tried to escape with the trigger arm. He was just a random middle schooler who got caught up in everything. Investigator Tews thought that finishing him off would be cruel, but her partner, Warner, said it shows how important the trigger arm is. He even asked if Tews had feelings for the boy. Tews pinched Warner's leg hard and said that people like him are why they aren't taken seriously. Warner agreed that Tews works hard, and Tews made it clear she wouldn't hesitate, even if it was against a child. Hikaru, who had gone to the school bathroom, never expected that the woman would chase him across the earth. Alma then commented that Aki wasn't showing signs of wanting to fight. Hikaru added that they probably wouldn't be attacked even in the classroom. Alma suggested talking to Aki, saying there was so much chaos earlier that they didn't have time to talk. But Hikaru remembered Aki had made it clear she wanted to kill him, so he wasn't convinced by that idea. In fact, he thought it might be better to call the police. As he was lost in thought, Hikaru realized Alma had unrolled the entire toilet paper roll, covering both of them. Alma was fascinated by the contraption and couldn't resist playing with it. Out of nowhere, Aki appeared and told Hikaru not to go to the police, saying the officers were just pawns of the Kagami group. If they caught him, they would hand him over to the boss. In the middle of this mess, Aki offered to be Hikaru's bodyguard. Desperate, Hikaru complained that they were in the men's bathroom, then ran out as fast as he could, still wrapped in toilet paper. Shirayama saw the whole scene, but what scared her the most was seeing Aki chase after him relentlessly. Later, Hikaru met up with his friends. They wanted to know what was going on between him and Aki. Hikaru tried to explain that she was chasing him, but his friends didn't believe him and thought he was hiding something. Then, when Aki showed up again, one of his friends casually pointed out where Hikaru was hiding, but by then he had already run away and found a place to hide. Suddenly, Shirayama walked up to Aki and introduced herself. Seeing how nervous Shirayama was, she offered Aki a box of cookies. While she explained the different flavors, Alma and Hikaru were terrified that Aki might hurt Shirayama, but to their surprise, Aki ate the cookies without any hesitation, as if everything was fine. The two girls seemed to be forming a friendship, even though Aki clearly struggled with socializing. Since Shirayama was more outgoing, they got along, leaving Hikaru completely confused. Alma suggested that Hikaru should talk to Aki, but Hikaru had a different plan: to sleep. Alma grumbled, but Hikaru explained he couldn't talk about the mechanical arm while at school. Alma then asked what Hikaru had just taken out of his pocket, and Hikaru explained that it was a pair of noise-canceling headphones. Alma was amazed by how they worked. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying the story. While this strange conversation was happening, Shirayama whispered some advice to Aki about Hikaru. When Hikaru got back to school, Alma kept telling him to talk to Aki, but Hikaru wasn't ready. Shirayama then caught up to him and handed him a note from Aki. She had asked to meet him in the art room of the old school building after class. Shirayama scolded Hikaru, saying that Aki had been looking for him all day, but couldn't find him. Hikaru, speechless in the middle of this crazy situation, figured he was just shy about meeting new people. Shirayama then dragged him to the meeting spot, where Aki told him to accept the woman's love with all his heart. When Hikaru faced Aki, he thought that Aki had used Shirayama to get him there. But Aki said it was all Maru's plan, not hers. Hearing Aki call Shirayama by her first name made Hikaru lose his mind since they had just met that day. Setting that aside, Hikaru wanted to know what Aki wanted. Aki explained that she was a member of ARMS and was tasked with protecting the trigger arm. Her first mission was to bring it back to Iki. But since Hikaru had bonded with the arm, they had no choice but to take him along too. Alma admitted that he wanted to know more about himself, as he no longer knew who he was. Hikaru agreed, realizing that Alma became weaker when they were apart. Aki was still trying to understand why all of this was happening. Nervous about the situation, Hikaru tried to get her attention. One of the arms told him to be quiet because Aki wasn't good at handling these things. Finally, Aki said they needed to examine the robotic arm right away, and that Hikaru had no choice. So Hikaru asked if Alma could power up like before to fight off any threats. The Mecha Ude did as requested and unleashed his full power. Iki was impressed by the display of power, but when the arm lost all its strength, Hikaru quickly grabbed it and ran away before things could go wrong. Alma complained that humans shouldn't be running in the hallway, but Aki was already chasing them furiously. Shuriyama popped in and reminded Hikaru that he needed to talk to Aki properly. This made Hikaru panic, and he frantically searched for a way to escape. At the same time, Tews was trying to find her target inside the old school. Warner told her that a student was guarding the entrance, making it hard to get close. Hikaru, trapped inside, realized his only way out was to go up the stairs. One of Aki's arms directed her to the fire escape, while another arm suggested the opposite direction for no logical reason. Aki decided to go down anyway. A city-like space opened up in the ceiling above Hikaru, and before he knew it, he was under Aki Murasami's control. Aki admitted she didn't understand why Hikaru didn't finish her off when she was defenseless. But Hikaru had no idea what she was talking about. She demanded to know what his intentions were with Alma, though her arm tried to explain that Hikaru had no bad intentions. Despite this, Aki ordered them to prove their bond, and her arm started emitting power again, but it soon weakened. Aki declared that Hikaru was only hurting the trigger arm, so she'd have to get rid of him. Just then, Shuriyama burst in, misunderstood the situation, and ran off, thinking he was interrupting a romantic moment. Warner took advantage of the open door and entered the old school to chase Hikaru. Hikaru noticed the strange man was wearing a Kagami Group uniform. Warner then revealed his Mecha Ude and aimed to eliminate Alma's host. Using a sonic shot that stunned its target, Warner opened the door and gave Tews, who had a long-range rifle, a clear shot to take down Hikaru. Hikaru barely escaped and kept running while Warner continued shooting at him. At the end of the hallway, Hikaru was stunned again. The sniper locked onto him and fired, but Aki stepped in with her metallic arm to protect Hikaru. Noticing Warner's presence, Aki assumed he was part of Kagami Group's Expansion Department 3. Alma asked what a chained Mecha Ude was, and one of Aki's arms explained that the chain was a device that stole the consciousness of robots, turning them into slaves. Aki told Hikaru to hide with Alma while she handled the situation. As Hikaru retreated, Warner threw luminous blades at his enemy. Far away from the fight, Hikaru was tired of running, but he kept going. Alma, however, didn't want to run anymore and rebelled against the decision, refusing to leave Aki and the Mecha Udes behind. Hikaru, out of fear, threatened to stay behind, but eventually gave in and followed Alma. At the bottom of the stairs, Alma was nearly collapsing from being so far from Hikaru. Hikaru approached him and asked the robot to stop pretending to be tough. He then placed the trigger arm on his shoulder, thinking about how he could fight back. Meanwhile, Tews asked Warner for an update, but he didn't respond, so she decided to enter the facility herself. Inside, the henchmen had managed to immobilize and chain Aki's Mecha Udes. They offered her control over them, but Aki made it clear she wasn't like them. She was then carried outside, where Tews was waiting, and asked what happened to the trigger arm. Weiner said it was hidden somewhere inside the building, causing Tews to change the subject and focus on something else. Tews couldn't kill Aki because her orders were to take her away. Just then, Hikaru appeared, carrying the trigger arm, the main target of the Kagami Group. Despite the villain's confidence, Hikaru assured them it wouldn't be as easy as last time. Ignoring him, Warner fired the sonic shot again, but this time Hikaru was ready, wearing noise, canceling headphones. Unharmed by the attack, Hikaru threw his metallic arm toward Aki so she could free her Mecha Udes from the chains. The problem was that Hikaru needed to stay close to the arm to keep it from malfunctioning, so he jumped toward Alma but was hit by Tews' rifle, losing one side of his headphones. Even so, the plan worked, and Aki was freed. Without hesitation, she used Tews as a shield against the next sonic shot and lunged at Warner. Protected by Aki, she closed the gap and landed a powerful blow. Tews, having taken the sonic damage, was also taken down. Finally, the entire fight caused the old school building to collapse. Tews escaped, but Warner was left behind. Other ARMS members arrived, criticizing Aki Murasame for the mess she caused and asking about Alma. Meanwhile, security personnel at the facility decided to contact White Raven, as someone had stolen the artificial Mecha Ude Ouroboros, which was extremely dangerous. Back with Hikaru, he was taken to ARMS headquarters, an organization that fights against the Kagami group and aims to free the Mecha Udes from their chains. The leader of the organization introduced himself as Logs and said his Mecha Ude's name was Fist. Fist called Alma his little brother and assured him he would soon remember who he was. However, despite needing Alma's help, they made it clear that they didn't need Hikaru.
Meanwhile, a young man from ARMS walks through the streets while talking to someone on his device. The person mentions that a middle school boy managed to bring Alma back. The ARMS member admits he's never heard of a Dries being made with just a sweatshirt, just as the Ouroboros kid appears in front of him. Switching back to Hikaru, he's being used as a weight for Alma's daily push-ups, while confessing to Aki that it bothered him when they said he was useless to the resistance. At that moment, a scientist from the organization revealed he analyzed some data while Hikaru was asleep. The scientist shows on a screen that Hikaru has an arbitrium, a power generated by the human mind that feeds the robot. Unfortunately, Hikaru has far less arbitrium than required to host this type of robot, meaning he wasn't born for it. People around thought QN, the scientist, was too harsh, but the truth was Hikaru's arbitrium level was almost negative, worse than an ordinary person. QN makes it clear that Hikaru is only Alma's temporary host and doesn't have any real power, but Alma steps in to defend the boy, boldly saying that Hikaru can achieve anything if he tries. Alma insists that Hikaru is kind and always helps others, and if it weren't for him, Alma wouldn't even be here. Still, QN insists the numbers don't lie, and Hikaru has no future in this. Aiki responds that it's impossible to know for sure. She points out that Hikaru showed the power to draw strength from Alma, which is why she offers to train him. Reflecting on this, Hikaru wonders if training is necessary since he's just being used as a weight for Alma. Aiki explains that arbitrium is a matter of spirit and encourages Hikaru to stay motivated since it was his decision to help. Amidst this, Saki receives a call from ARMS and summons Hikaru to come along. Once there, they learn that thieves are stealing Mechais from their carriers, with the third theft happening this week. Algae student speculates that a new Kagami agent group might be behind it, and they need to act quickly to recover the stolen arms before it's too late. Alma is confused about the urgency, so one of Aiki's arms explains that if a Mecha Ude is forcibly removed from its carrier, it will die within a few days due to arbitrium leaking from the Dries point. Even though not much is known about arbitrium, it plays an important role in human biology. Anyone who forms a Dries with a Mecha Ude gains extraordinary abilities, and while this may not apply to Hikaru, they cannot afford to lose Alma. Meanwhile, Algies cuts off someone asking if the boy attacked was in a worm-type case, reminding them that their job is to protect Alma and keep emotions out of it. Rue seems confused by the talk of emotions, but Aki brushes it off, saying it doesn't concern him. She calls her student over to look at something. Meanwhile, at the Kagami building, a subordinate informs the president that Jun's location hasn't been found. Naoto Kagami's trusted man says Jun has shamed the family by stealing an incomplete artificial Mecha Ude. A boy named Tadu, listening from the side, suspects someone from Division 3 promotion helped Jun escape. He volunteers to handle the matter if needed. Back with Aki, she investigates the case without informing her superiors. Nearby, a man named Imada is searching for Kagami's younger brother. Along with his Mecha Ude, Joe, the two set off to find Jun for the honor of Shiragarisho. Suddenly, Aiki arrives on the scene with Hikaru and asks Imada if he knows anything about a worm-type Mecha Ude carrier. Without delay, Shiragarisa's henchmen charge at her, but she quickly summons Sinus and Dex to handle the attack. Seeing his men suffer, Kagami changes his attitude, assuming Aki is with arms. Amid the chaos, Hikaru notices a green-haired child hiding in the corner, struggling to breathe with an inhaler. Without realizing it's Jun, he rushes to help, but the child escapes in the confusion. Kagami orders Joe to transform into a motorcycle and chase after the green-haired boy. A little further ahead, Hikaru is stopped by more Shiragarisa henchmen, just as one is about to strike him. Alma, who is supposed to stay hidden, intervenes to protect Hikaru. Imada arrives on his bike, and as everyone watches, Jun escapes. Imada closes in on Hikaru, and Alma starts running to avoid trouble. The bike catches up, but Aiki steps in, delivering a powerful kick that flips Joe over and throws Imada off. Threatened by Aiki, Kagami swears he doesn't know anything about the worm type. Aki loses patience and throws a large container near him to scare him. Sinus and Dex realize that the men genuinely don't know anything. Afterwards, Aki confronts Hikaru, furious that he almost caused Arms to lose Alma. She reminds him that while she saw some potential in him, right now he's still useless. Aki makes it clear that if he's not going to help, he shouldn't get in the way. All he needs to do is stay by her side and remain silent. Meanwhile, Jun had finally found Alma after searching for so long and took a picture of him. Hikaru, upset by his tutor's attitude, snaps back at her, accusing her of bringing him to this dangerous place, and now acting like it's his fault, even though he has no idea why he's there. Frustrated, he decides to run away for good. The kid nearby celebrates their argument, thinking it spares him from dealing with Aki. But before he can relax, Aki steps in to confront him. The boy reveals his true power, showing he's a worm type, stunning everyone with his strength. Elsewhere, Hikaru is crying and Alma keeps urging him to go back. Suddenly, Hikaru's phone rings, and though the number belongs to Iki, it's actually the green-haired child who has taken Iki hostage. The child demands Hikaru's Mecha Ude in exchange for her life, warning that Iki will die soon since her Mecha Ude was ripped from her. A meeting point is set, and Algae contacts Hikaru, telling him not to go until the bodyguard arrives. Again, Hikaru hears that he's incapable of doing anything, leaving him feeling helpless. Alma tries to cheer him up by reminding him of the important role he's played so far. However, Hikaru believes his courage comes only from the metal arm, not from himself. Determined, Hikaru heads toward Jun, ignoring Algae's orders. Once there, he realizes the child he's facing is the same one he tried to help earlier. Alma reassures him that they'll get Sinus and Dex back, but Jun doesn't care about the old machines, he only wants Alma, believing whoever wields the trigger arm will gain unmatched power. Hikaru refuses to back down, and Jun charges at him with full force. Alma takes control of their movements, guiding Hikaru. Despite this, Jun's power is so immense that they can't get close to Sinus and Dex. Jun taunts Hikaru, saying weak people can't change anything. But Hikaru knows what it's like to feel powerless and refuses to give up. Fueled by anger, he charges at Jun and manages to land a punch. The hit enrages Jun, who unleashes his full power, wrapping Hikaru and Alma in his control and launching another attack. His Mecha Ude malfunctions and releases electrical charges that hit Hikaru and Alma directly, nearly ending the battle. With one final surge of power, Jun wraps them in his tentacles and delivers another shock, using so much strength that he needs his inhaler to recover. Thinking he has won, Jun lets his guard down, but Alma, who had been playing dead, sees the opportunity. However, the blow isn't enough to defeat Jun, and Alma starts to suffer from the distance between him and Hikaru. At this moment, Hikaru remembers everything they've been through together and pushes himself to close the gap. With great effort, Hikaru reaches Alma and touches the trigger arm. This unleashes a powerful energy explosion, making them incredibly strong. Jun resumes his attack, but this time, every one of his strikes is repelled. After an intense fight, Jun can no longer withstand the force and falls after a final, powerful punch. Before they can celebrate, Tadu, the mysterious boy from the Akagami meeting, arrives. So he says he's only there to collect his master and doesn't want to fight, but he decides to take Sinus and Dex. Hikaru protests, and since Tadu isn't being paid for this task, he returns the Mecha Udes without a fight and leaves. The next day, Aki wakes up next to her metal arms and finds Hikaru stitching the hood where Alma stays. Embarrassed, she admits she got involved because a worm-type Mecha Ude killed her family, but it wasn't the green-haired boy. She thanks Hikaru for saving her and takes the stitching from his hands, teasing him for being too slow. Suddenly, Miru arrives, sees them, and assumes something romantic is happening. Aki doesn't care and snatches the cookies Miru brought. Alma thinks the cookies were for Hikaru and pulls him into a playful scuffle over the sweets, leaving Hikaru confused about what's happening with these people. When night falls, some ARMS members wonder if the situation might be too much for Hikaru, until the transport truck from Kagami they've been waiting for finally arrives. Inside, a henchman celebrates that the shackle is still working, even after the scientist's death, though an unresolved issue with the mecha remains. Hikaru, hiding on top of the truck, wonders what he's doing there. Alma encourages him, reminding him they need to save their comrades, but Hikaru urges Alma to lower his voice before they get caught. At that moment, Oyama asks for an update, and Hikaru reports that there's a Mecha Ude user on the truck who seems dangerous. Oyama, the experienced ARMS member, orders him to stick to the plan and activate the imp once they pass the interchange. Meanwhile, the enemy charges up his metal arm, warning Kagami's scientist to tell him about anything powerful in those Mecha Ude, though the scientist isn't authorized to share this. Ignoring the plan, Alma attacks the truck driver, flipping the vehicle over. Without a second thought, Hikaru runs, Alma explaining he couldn't leave the cube behind and had managed to grab it. As they dash off, the truck blocks their path and an explosive is thrown at them. Soon, a hulking Kagami member demands his Mecha Ude back. And while Hikaru shakes with fear, Alma tries to think of a way to survive, dragging Hikaru along. As things spiral out of control, Tani and Carrick rush to help, but the Kagami brute fires another explosive, subduing them. Confident the fight is over, the brute boasts, but the shot he fired ends up destroying the bridge, sending his Mecha Ude flying as Hikaru and Alma are saved by Tani at the last second. They escape to a safe spot, but the brute quickly finds them and gives chase. Aki appears just in time to prevent a disaster, allowing Tani to grab Hikaru and run. The Kagami brute, feigning surprise, notes Aki has 2 Mecha Udes but then reveals he has 3. He attacks, aiming his cannon but misses. Exhausted, he collapses with Sinise and Dex mocking him for using multiple mecha without any training. Aki turns around to call the retrieval team, but suddenly an unknown element wraps around the brute's neck. When she looks back, he has transformed into a giant, and his attacks now devastate the area, forcing her to dodge the concrete blocks he hurls. Even though he is clearly drained of energy, it appears something unknown is controlling him. Hikaru arrives beside Alma, and Alma lands a powerful punch, sending the brute flying. Aiki scolds Hikaru for not leaving, but their opponent quickly gets back up and fires his cannon again. Alma absorbs the impact, shielding his allies, and Hikaru faces off with the brute once more, his moves sharper and more precise than the brute's. Overcome with rage, Alma shouts that Mecha Udes are not toys, landing a final blow that defeats the brute. After the fight, Tani arrives with several saved Mecha Ude cubes, thanking Hikaru for his help. Aki tries to figure out how the enemy managed to fight again after losing energy. With the mission complete, she heads back to the base. In the shower, memories of her sister flood back, moments when her sister would say she was the princess while Aki was the hero. If anything ever happened, Aki would protect her. Troubled by these memories, she picks up a family photo, staring at it before leaving the bathroom. In the hallway, she runs into Qwen, who finds himself flustered by her casual attire. Sinise and Dex cover her to keep him from staring while he gives a report. Unfortunately, the captured Kagami member hasn't revealed any information, and none of his Mecha Udes are the worm type. Aki, however, is convinced the brute used a worm type, judging by how he revived after exhausting his strength. At 8 the next morning, Alma wakes Hikaru and rushes him to avoid being late, while Aki shows up at Hikaru's window, speeding things along. She soon arrives at school with Hikaru in tow, tossing him into his seat. The classmates around them assume they're a couple, though it's far from the truth. Nearby, the girls in class and Maru talk about a new wealthy transfer student. Aki hears but doesn't seem too interested. Suddenly, a voice over the intercom calls Hikaru to the rooftop. When he arrives, he finds Jun Kagami, the new student, who says he transferred just to meet Hikaru and reclaim Alma. Aiki and Hikaru try to confront Kagami, but just as he's about to respond, Tado warns him through an earpiece to keep his promise not to use his mecha out at school. Jun tells them his mecha Uderoboros is still adapting to his body, so he'll use this time to learn what allows Hikaru to use the trigger arm, planning to take it for himself. Facing this threat, Aiki charges at Kagami, but Alma stops her, sensing that this boy knows something about his past. As the arms allies argue, Jun admits he can't attack Hikaru at school, but warns him to be on guard after dark. After the rooftop encounter, Aiki refuses to give Hikaru a month's peace, following him everywhere to ensure Alma isn't captured. Whether it's lunchtime or any other moment, she's always there, watching closely. After much effort, Hikaru finally gets some distance from Aki. Just then, Kagami approaches, curious about how Hikaru can use the trigger arm. In a conversation with Tado about what makes Hikaru different, Tado suggests it might be connected to their diets. Hearing this, Jun decides to treat his top rival to lunch. Alma notices Jun is carrying a super exclusive black card, the kind only celebrities have, while Hikaru takes the chance to ask about Alma's past. But Aiki arrives just in time to whisk the trigger arm and its host away. Before leaving, she tells Kagami that if he's offering to buy lunch, he should treat her to the highest quality, all-you-can-eat yakiniku. Afterward, Hikaru heads to the bathroom, frustrated with Aiki constantly tailing them. He thinks they'll never uncover Alma's past this way, but then he gets an idea it's the school's general sports tournament today. Once he reaches the court, Hikaru starts participating, looking around for Jun Kagami, only to get hit in the head by a stray ball. Seeing this, Jun wonders how someone who can wield the trigger arm can be so bad at sports. As if to add insult to injury, Aki throws another ball, hitting Hikaru's head again, using it as an excuse to rush to his aid. Meanwhile, Maru arrives and notices there's a competition brewing over Hikaru. She organizes a duel between Aiki and Kagami to settle things, with her as the referee. Aki sets a condition. If she wins, Jun must leave Hikaru alone. But before the fight begins, Hikaru wakes up and offers to pay for Aki's favorite yakiniku buffet to stop the duel. In exchange for her favorite meal, Aki agrees to pause the duel and walks away. Hikaru finally gets a moment to talk with Jun Kagami. Alma admits he knows nothing about his past, so Jun shares that his family holds information connected to the trigger arm. He shows a photo of Alma once being with Yakumo Kagami, founder of Kagami Corporation, which made the city of Kagaami what it is today. Alma is heartbroken, realizing he may have harmed other Mecha Udes alongside this group. Jun, however, knows nothing further and tells them they'll have to discover more on their own. Meanwhile, Aki receives a call from Kyun, who claims to have found something about a worm-type user. After the call, Hikaru and Alma head to the library to investigate the city's founding history. There, they find a large portrait of Yakumo Kagami, which enrages Alma, given how the Kagami family is revered despite their treatment of Mecha Udes. Alma feels his past is just within reach, yet nothing comes to mind. Later, Ikki encounters the worm-type user, who is holding Tani captive. The user tears Carix from Tani's back and throws Tani at his partner, then crushes Carix until the Mecha Ude shatters. Cenis and Dex, furious, attack the worm user, but she easily evades them and attaches a device to Tani's back, forcing him to turn on his teammate. In the midst of the battle, Eki has no choice but to defeat Tani. Hikaru, hearing what happened, rushes to help, while Oyama arrives and takes the injured to Arms. At Arms, doctors and scientists work to stabilize Tani. Algiz assures them that Tani will recover, but he cannot say the same for Carix. Hikaru suggests they repair Carix with new parts, but Algiz and Fist explain that Mecha Udes are living beings from another dimension, much like humans. They reveal that Ardella, who brought them life, was discovered on this planet with human help. However, when they tried to awaken her, an accident caused her to lose control. To seal her, Alma used all his energy, which put him into a deep sleep. In short, Alma's lost memory is the only key to breaking the seal and awakening Ardella. However, if this power were to fall into the wrong hands, Arm's main goal is to prevent that from happening. Amidst all this, Carix's vital signs fade away. If you enjoyed this, drop a comment and subscribe for more.